Identify and describe the main human rights mechanisms protecting indigenous rights. Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act 1997, Republic Act Number 371 of 1997, an act to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of indigenous cultural communities, indigenous peoples, creating a National Commission on Indigenous Peoples, establishing implementing mechanisms, appropriating fines therefore, and for other purposes. Republic Law 8371, known as the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act (IPRA), was enacted in 1997. It has been praised for its support for the cultural integrity of indigenous peoples, the right to their lands, and the right to self-directed development of these lands. Next is rights to ancestral domains. The rights of ownership and possession of ICCS IPs to their ancestral domain shall include a. The right of ownership, b. The right to develop, control, and use lands and natural resources, c. The right to stay in the territories and not to be removed therefrom, d. The right of resettlement in suitable sites. Ancestral domains, subject to Section 5.6 hereof, refer to all areas generally belonging to ICCS IPs comprising lands, inland waters, coastal areas, and natural resources therein, held under a claim of ownership, occupied or possessed by ICCS IPs by themselves or through their ancestors communally or individually since time immemorial, continuously to the present except when interrupted by war, force majeure, or displacement by force, deceit, stealth, or as a consequence of government projects or any other voluntary dealings entered into by government and private individuals corporation, in which are necessary to ensure their economic, social, and cultural welfare. It shall include ancestral lands, forests, pasture, residential, agriculture, and other lands individually owned, whether alienable and disposable or otherwise, hunting grounds, burial grounds, worship areas, bodies of water, mineral and other natural resources, and lands which may no longer be exclusively occupied by ICCS IPs but from which they traditionally had access to for their subsistence and traditional activities, particularly the home ranges of ICCS IPs who are still romantic and for shifting cultivators. Next is social justice and human rights and cultural integrity. Cultural integrity, Section 29, protection of indigenous culture, tradition, and institution. The state shall respect, recognize, and protect the right of ICCS IPs to preserve and protect their culture, tradition, and institution. Section 21, equal protection and non-discrimination of ICCS IPs, consistent with the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, including the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and international human rights law. The state shall, with due recognition of their distinct characteristics and identity, accord to the members of the ICCS IPs the rights, protection, and privileges enjoyed by the rest of the citizenry. It shall extend to them the same employment rights, opportunities, basic services, educational, and other rights and privileges available to every member of the society. Accordingly, the state shall likewise ensure that the employment of any form of force or coercion against ICCS IPs shall be dealt with by law.